Now, just an update on that Iranian missile strike on the hospital in southern Israel. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has now posted on X. He has said, and I quote, "Terrorist tyrants launched the missiles and said we will exact the full price from the tyrants in Tehran." I want to bring in my political panel for today, Labor MP Jerome Laxall and Liberal MP Aaron Violi. Welcome to both of you. The domestic issues have sort of taken a bit of a back seat, and I think it's pretty understandable given what we're seeing unfold around the world. Jerome, I'll start with you. There is now a reporting in the United States that the US has approved entering this conflict. Now, that doesn't mean that they have started, but they have approved Donald Trump's right to do that. That's the reporting. Would that be unwise at this stage? What's your view?
Look, what America does is a decision that they need to make. I lean on what the Foreign Minister said, Penny Wong, this morning, that we believe that the best way through some of these issues is through discussion and diplomacy. It's pretty horrific what we're seeing, what's happening over there. I've got a very large Iranian Australian community, Persian community here in Bennelong, and they've been reaching out. They're worried for their family over there. It's a horrific situation, and it's one that I think, you know, the world will be watching very closely over the coming weeks.
No, we can't tell the US what to do, but we can certainly give our own view as a nation. The government's saying that we want to de-escalate. Does de-escalate mean that the US should not get involved then in this?
Well, I think what you've seen Australia do over a number of world conflicts now is use diplomacy and use our role as a middle power to ensure that discussions continue. I think we've been pretty open about that, and I think de-escalation is definitely something we'll continue to call for with like-minded countries as well. So, yeah, the Foreign Minister has a record on this and has a record on diplomacy and discussion, and will continue to do that.
OK, I want to bring you in, Aaron. The reporting out of the US, again, is showing that Donald Trump may be poised to do this. Would that make the world a more dangerous place?
Well, as Jerome said, PK, I mean, it's a very challenging, tough situation. Our hearts go out to, like Jerome, I've got many from the Iranian community in my seat in Casey. Not as many as Bennelong and Menzies, I would say, but they're going through a tough time with their families back home, and many Israeli citizens. So it's a tough time. No one wants to see war or conflict in any situation, whether it's the Middle East, Africa. I've got a Chin community, and the Myanmar civil war is still continuing. It's going for over 40 years. We don't want to see conflict. Unfortunately, it's the world we live in. And I mean, the real question is, do we want Iran as a nation and the Islamic Republic regime to have nuclear weapons? That's why Israel is looking to do what they're doing at the moment to make sure they don't get nuclear weapons. What I would say is, I don't think anyone thinks the world would be a safer place if that regime had access to nuclear weapons. And obviously the US has a lot more intelligence and a lot closer to it than myself, so I'm not going to provide President Trump or the US administration with advice or commentary on how they should act. But it's clear that the world would be a safer place if the Iranian regime did not have access to nuclear weapons. Now, whether this action will achieve that, that's something I'm not in a place to provide commentary on.
OK, let's leave that issue and talk about a big domestic issue. The Treasurer's openness to reform is being looked at as a pretty positive sign by some. Jerome, does that mean big tax reform? What's your understanding of how bold this could be?
Well, I really enjoyed watching the Treasurer's delivery of that speech to the press club yesterday. It showed to me that, here we have a Treasurer, part of a financial team and a government that's keen to tackle the big issues. We have a lot to deliver that we took to the election, but that's not limiting our ambition. And, people have been calling on the government to do more in this space, to do more on productivity, more on tax reform. And I guess he's laid the marker out there, which is a really positive thing. Importantly, he said that this is reform that we need to do together. That starts with a productivity roundtable in August, which I know the Liberals always like to have a stab, and they've already criticised this productivity roundtable, but they've got a huge role to play in the next 3 years. As do you, PK, and the media, we're going to play gotcha politics with tax reform. We're going to rule things in and out with every question. And the Liberals, are they going to oppose everything that's spoken about? I mean, this is a really important time. Where we are today is not sustainable in the long term, and things must change. We need to change that together.
Aaron, I'm going to throw that to you. You're going to play gotcha. Well, that's for me, the gotcha bit. So, OK, I'll own that. And no, I don't really overwhelmingly like to play gotcha. I think sometimes, though, you do try and find out where people are going, but let's park that. Aaron, the question to you, are you just going to oppose everything, or are you open to some reform?
Well, the Coalition have said that we will engage constructively. It'll be an interesting test for the Treasurer. Does he offer Susan or Ted or our economic team a seat at the table as part of those conversations? I mean, that's a symbolic test that he needs to pass. I mean, I do find it funny, and Jerome's right, we do know that the government do love a round table. People prefer action, but look, we're going to engage in this in good faith. Although it is interesting, PK, when you look at the commentary from the Prime Minister and the Treasurer before the election, the economy was flying, the Australian people had never had it better, and they were geniuses that were delivering all this success. And suddenly, a few months later, it's unsustainable, the budget, which many of us were saying before the election. Productivity is an issue. Many of us were talking about the need for productivity reform in the last term of government. I mean, the concern that many Australians have, and I have as well, is the Treasurer has already said he's not going to deliver any productivity reform until his third term. So he's already pitching for another term. So let's see what he comes up with. I mean, I criticised, as Jerome would know, the government last term for not having a minister for the digital economy. They have vacated the field when it comes to AI. And suddenly today, 3 years later, it's the most urgent thing. Well, they had 3 years to act. So we will engage constructively, but we'll also hold them to account for the failures of the last 3 years and where we go moving forward.
Well, let me throw that to you, Jerome, the critique that we didn't hear that the budget needed some big reform before the election. Should we have? Should you have come clean and said, yeah, we need big change? Because you didn't say that.
Oh, look, I don't agree with that. I think we've been pretty open and honest about the budget position over a long period of time.
Not about tax reform, though. I think it's fair to say you haven't been on tax reform.
Definitely about the sustainability of the budget. You know, a lot of our NDIS reforms are about sustainability of that program within a budget. I think at each and every budget reply speech, the Treasurer did say that there was pressures on the budget. But in that context, we also delivered 2 budget surpluses and halved the deficit in our final budget. So, to say that I think Aaron put some words into the Treasurer's mouth there, but I think we've been open and honest. And if you look at how we approached changing the stage 3 tax cuts, that was a really bold move, one where we explained to the electorate what the situation was and what we were going to do. I feel that's our model to take tax reform either to this Parliament or to the next election. We need to be open and honest with Australians about the budget position, and I think we've done that throughout our term.
I want to change the topic to environmental law reform. Big roundtable today. The Environment Minister, Murray Watt, getting people together to try and nut out some new laws. Aaron, are you open to talking to the government about this law reform?
Well, PK, another roundtable. We love a roundtable. But in all seriousness,
conversations are important for governments to be having.
Imagine
if they didn't talk to people, that would be bad.
Correct. I know, but as I said, they do love a roundtable. It's really clear that the Prime Minister had no faith at all in Tanya Plibersek, and that Murray Watt has been moved into environment to fix up her mess and make sure that the Prime Minister gets what he wants. But credit to Murray. I was being a bit facetious. It is good that he's bringing all stakeholders together to try and find some solutions here, because it's a really challenging, portfolio in the sense that you're trying to balance protecting the environment, which we all want to do, but also making sure that business can operate, they can invest with confidence and drive economic growth. getting that balance right is challenging at the best of times. We've said again, and we'll continue to say, we will work constructively with the government where they're willing to listen, where they're willing to engage and take our perspective on board. We're going to hold them to account when they make mistakes and where they don't get it right and where they don't listen. So let's see what Murray comes out with. He's started his roundtable, but again, action and the legislation that he puts forward, because the devil is always in the detail with this government. We'll scrutinise that when we get to see it in the future.
Okay, so the environmental law reform, Jerome, you have been quite passionate about this. Would you like to see a climate trigger in it? That's something that I think the Greens would like to push for.
Well, no, I didn't say a climate trigger, PK.
No,
I said,
I'm asking.
yeah.
I'm asking. I'm not putting the words in your mouth. You can describe it. Would you like to see?
Jerome.
Would you like to see
I
a
said
climate criteria in it?
And for those who follow this closely, know there's a big difference between what the Greens are asking for, and even if you look at your interview beforehand, the implication that environmental groups were somehow usurped by industry at today's roundtable, I think, is a bit over the top. And the type of approach that we just cannot have in this term of parliament if we're to get stronger environmental laws. This constant conflict when there is broad support across industry and environmental groups that this law needs to change and that we need to have stronger environmental protections. We can't just keep on misconstruing events and pulling out little bits and pieces here. Good on Murray Watt for making this a priority, and for the Prime Minister, and good on him for having a roundtable. I know Aaron will poke fun at it at every opportunity, but it's important to get those who have a passion about this topic and those who are subject to the laws together to make sure it can work. Last Parliament, these laws didn't progress. We don't want that to happen again. So it's about everybody, maybe taking a bit of skin off their nose and getting a stronger set of laws through. These laws have been around since 1999. They're broken. We need to fix them.
Aaron, are they broken?
I mean, many have said that. I do note that Jerome skillfully avoided going anywhere near what he thought of the climate trigger. But it's clear industry and environmental groups have said that the improvements need to be made, and getting that balance right. As I said, Tanya Plibersek wasn't able to get the balance right clearly in the last term, and the challenge is now for Murray Watt as the Prime Minister's fixer to see if he can get this right. If he started with his roundtable, as I said, we'll wait and see what balance he gets.
Yeah, look, I've got to put it to you, Jerome. Tanya Plibersek keeps getting put in it here. Was it her fault?
No, I don't think so. I think it's the Liberals that keep on putting Tanya Plibersek in there for purely political reasons. I think Tanya got stage one of those law reforms through, and like shock horror, ministers change portfolios from time to time. I think the last government had 7 defence ministers in 10 years. Like, these things happen. Tanya did a great job as Environment Minister, protected a huge amount of our Australian national oceans, and created marine parks and did a whole heap of really important things. Murray's now got the job. Ministers change portfolios, and I'm really pleased that he's made this a priority, and I think he said he wants to get...
All right. I think we've just lost you, Jerome, right at that moment.
It's done in the first half of the term, so let's all get behind him to do it, including you, Aaron.
Let's see when there's a bit of detail, and both of you will come back on and we can have discussion around some real tangible changes rather than just the headline. Thank you to both of you. It's been a good conversation.
Thanks, PK. Thanks, Jerome.